Thank you very much. Do you hear me? Great. Delighted to be here with the 20 minutes that has been given to me. I'm going to give you a snapshot of urban design process as it relates to workplace and living place, as it relates to working and living quarters. Don't get scared. I'm showing some historical slides. And of course, the previous presentation was very much on the micro level, and I'm removing you to much more of a macro level. I thought I'd start with a very innovative project that related the workplace, or I would say working quarters and living quarters back in 18th century. This is a design of a salt work factory in Arsenan in France by Claude Nicole Ladoux. The project was only partly built, I would say minimally built, and was never completed. But the whole idea Ladoux had here is that he located a factory in the middle of a cluster of villages in France when farmers could farm, could stay in their own houses and then walk to the factory and work. So you don't dislocate people, and you have a very efficient factory over there. I mean, that was in 1771, which is just wonderful. Of course, this was the only, as you've noticed, the center is that main building right on the heart. This was the only thing that was built. And then the project was stopped. Along similar kind of line of thinking, this is Le Corbusier, a famous French-Swiss architect, design of a city for 3 million people. Is a self-contained, I'm sorry, this is from slides, from traditional slides to electronic slides, back to, thumb drive and so forth, so things get, but here is a better picture of it. So very intense, very high density, 3 million people living and working. There is industry, there is commercial, there is shopping, there is residential. But right across the water, along the same type of innovative ideas, in Norman Bel Geddes in 1939 has designed this kind of project, which was called City of Future, and was exhibited in the New York's World Fair in 1939. And this is the American version of the combining working quarters and living quarters right in a very density downtown. And this was the project. You could see there is a scale model. There's some people sitting there. And these are some kind of detail of this, and with, of course, the 14-lane highways. Is clearly representing the advancement in technology and engineering and representation of that kind of thinking. However, the reason I throw these as ideas from 1770 to 1920s to 1950s to show you while there were those kind of thought processes and development, the reality was different. The reality was this. In 1947 to 51, Levittown, one of the most innovative projects which were actually implemented and was extremely popular. How do you give housing to people? And that's what it was successful and developed. You could see as minimum as possible. And this was Levittown a few years later after that. And of course, if you go now, it's a little different. And following Levittown, we saw this really accelerated suburbanization that continued. These were early steps of suburbanization in 50s and 60s, and we went to 70s and 80s. I wanted to throw that slide because I thought you might be interested. For $9,700 you could buy a house. And these days you can get a car for that price. And so as those, in fact, right in 50s and 60s of suburbanization took place, so as urban blight and downtown basically exodus, people leaving downtown and what is behind is the slums, and situations like this, and situations like that, and there are still large number of American cities that you see these kind of really derelict spaces left empty. Of course, suburbanization continues in 70s, 80s, and 90s, and there are California version of those development. There are East Coast and West Coast version of it, and you could see how this thing, the reality is continuing. Now, the interesting point is that ideal American home remains through the century as it is right now at this current time, is a detached single-family home in a large lot in a cul-de-sac. That's the ideal, so you can move away step by step from it, but this is the idea. Now, in the 1980s, in the areas in the regions where single-family housing was not affordable, there was an acceptance of condos and attached home and condominiums, and different variation of that was developed. But essentially, this is the ideal that remains today. And it's interesting that even sometimes when the condos and townhomes are acceptable, a project like this is more acceptable than a row of townhomes or condos. Why? Because this is 4 units that are stacked together. It looks like a single family home, but there are 4 units of condominiums. So they sell better and they're better products. It's the question of image. And of course, I know there are a good number of architects in the community, with postmodern architecture help bringing these traditional and classical motifs, help selling a lot of the townhomes and condos, because again it gives that Heimlich, that homey look to a lot of people, and that's desirable. And project like this, which by the way is in Irvine, that were built early 70s in a very simple California style, now are going through facelift. I mean, there are people who buy them and they try to make it more traditional by giving a facelift. Or project like that, roof changes, color of a stucco changes, door changes, and so as much as you can bring elements. And this is the very desirable, that it's very common, and you just can drive around here in this area in Sunnyvale, you can see plenty of them. And again, in the more high rent area and areas which are very single family housing is very expensive, like LA. I just throw this one slide. These type of projects which were built in 60s and 70s, some of the condominium units are on the back, and all you have are few windows with a 6 foot of a space between the 2 buildings, and still people buy them. And still they last about a month on the market in this, if they're good price. So what I really wanted to come to is that what is happening right now, and the trend continues, and what is happening right now, we have kind of cities and neighborhoods like this, which are kept, they're preserved, they're live, and they're vibrant. There are places like this. This is, of course, in Louisville, Kentucky. That was in Pennsylvania, the former slides. And, that are preserved, and they're not a lot of space preserved. The space is clean, nice, but half of the buildings are empty. And there isn't much interest. And there are places like that are not preserved and are still look ugly. And you can see even when they were putting the hotel next to the highway, this is Syracuse, New York, and even when the hotel meets the street, it's just like a prison. It's just a wall. So that they still stay there. And there are places that are partly renovated, partly remodeled, partly active, partly not. It's kind of on the edge of dying, but it's not dead yet. And you know, like this, I mean, you know, there are a few oldish, and then there's a new one. And in order to see some of them, all you have to do is just drive another 50, 70 miles to central California, and you see different towns, a large number of them. You don't have to go far away. And then there are interesting things like Denver, and you can see that the industrial area, even houses which don't have a lot of architectural values, sorry, houses, not houses, buildings, and a lot of them industrial, have been converted to living quarters, and they're very, very vibrant, and people are buying them because they're affordable, and even they throw a swimming pool in the parking lot, and it's working. So it just all depends on a number of things. I did have better slides to present this, but I wanted to present this 1981 to kind of show you that ideas were going to as early 80s, that there was this, in order to rebuild and revitalize downtown, there was this huge conceptual projects that brings a lot of hotels and residences and shopping to downtown so you can bring people in downtown. In reality, most of them have not worked. All is working is bringing more conventions. So the residential part of it has failed, but hotels and shopping and in fact, LA to this date is still struggling, and I'm sure there are a number of wonderful experts in real estate here, and they can agree with me. But still, they're not giving up. There are more shopping, more hotel, concert hall, and everything, and they're successful in that on those lines of businesses. But however, they're not living cities. Still, when you go at 10, 11 o'clock, there aren't very many people on the streets walking. But there are a lot of places that are active. And this was the original idea. Of course, this was not built, but part of it was built and then it stopped. So what is happening right now is that after like 50 years of advanced urban design and 100 years of planning, not only we have those series of neighborhoods and cities which are, as I said, some have been successful, some not. There are some downtowns that are live, some they're not. And so as neighborhoods, we have a good number of corporations going to suburban areas like this in the middle of no place for a variety of reasons, for cutting cost, for their image, for convenience, and also there is just to take the entire operation in one location. In fact, it's interesting because the Nokia presentation was a very clear example of that 3-4 location, putting it together. Of course, this was done very tastefully and elegantly, but there are some not very tasteful example of it. And there are still interesting, which I thought I would be remiss to not show, they're still building these office and commercial buildings in suburban areas, which looks like a jail. And it's just simply block, forget about it, come in and get out. And in fact, put the windows inward in like a courtyard inside. Don't have any windows because of security. So forget about aesthetics and other aspects. What I really wanted to bring the focus is to this relationship between workplace and living places, as you know, certainly with the advent of internet and sophistication of software and hardware. We all know, we don't have to talk about it, we all know there are a lot of people who can work from their home, or at least don't need to come to work 5 days a week. They can come 2 days or 3 days. And so what is happening is that there is a trend developing that a good number of people want to live, although they don't have to come to work, they still want to live near their workplace. And so, and also because of the variety of businesses, because as you know, manufacturing is gone from the United States to a large extent, so a lot of the businesses and a lot of commercial activities don't have to be near each other, because of the communications that we have. So if a lot of corporations don't have to be in downtown and they locate in suburb, and the people are locating in suburb, so downtown and suburbs are becoming a little bit irrelevant. So what is happening, there are a couple of phenomena, a couple of patterns are developing. One, that there are there's this notion of the mini centers or commercial nodes are getting developed in various places. So we're in the middle of a large suburban area. You have a couple of office buildings, a little bit of shopping. It's very close. It's not necessarily walking, although it could be walking. In some areas of the country, there are walking distances. But in California or West, they still get into the car, but they drive 5 minutes. And there is convenient parking. So they go to their offices, stay a few hours or 1 or 2 days, they go back to the work. That is a very, very interesting pattern that is continuing. And what is also, I was going to add to that, that economy, the economic downturn is also helping that pattern. Simply, unless we are not going to go, again, there are more experts than me here in this room, but unless we don't go to another boom, or that all of these half-developed suburban development, because as you know, now we have slum suburbs too, and we also have suburban developments that almost half of the units in a tract are left empty and are fenced and are waiting to be sold maybe 10 years from now, and some of them there are few houses and the rest lots. And we have very unpleasant situation in a lot of the suburbs. So unless there is not a major boom or a major change in immigration policy, that a lot of people immigrate to the United States, that's going to stay the same. But this notion of urban nodes are expanding in an accelerated rate. Companies getting to these offices, building their corporation, revitalizing the spaces, getting all the spaces, creating new workplaces, and then some of the residential area surrounding that, they're going to be benefited by that, or vice versa. So there is that relationship between workplace and working quarters, living quarters, and working place. What I wanted to say, there were some visionary plan in 1960s, planned communities that thought about that as early as 1960s. That's the fascinating thing about it, and that's one of the best examples is Irvine, California. If you look at this, that was the sketch actually. This was really a sketch from that 1950s and 60s where they were designing. But this is Irvine, and that center is the Woodbridge, one of the villages, because as a village concept. As you can see, that there is residential, there is commercial, there's office, there's shopping, everything self-contained. Within the 5 minutes to 10 minutes at most, you can drive from house to the work, park in your place. And let's focus even further. You could see the commercial. There, in fact, right here when you see, there's a whole set of medical facilities. There's a whole set of office and banking facilities. There is the shopping. There is the restaurant. There is the lake, and plenty of housing surrounding. This is a very well-designed part of it, but the same pattern are developing somehow in various urban areas that have already been built, and there are modifications in the urban fabric that create something ideal like that. Same here. Another interesting phenomena is that when they designed Irvine, they realized it in advance, so they built a lot of commercial spaces looking like homes. So giving this homey look that everything is just comfortable and the feeling of kind of hominess is there. You can see this. Or this one. I mean, no one could have imagined this is an office, but it is an office. Maybe it's a series of townhomes. And it's interesting enough, this is slides, some of them are 20 years old. Right now you go, the landscaping has even more overgrown and has more charm, given more charm to the place. Now another one of those examples, I'm sorry, this is the better one, is the Newport Beach General Plan, which followed Irvine, and this is Fashion Island, one of the most successful examples of these nodes. Plenty of corporations on those tall buildings, a very successful shopping center in the middle, and then there are a number of smaller scale offices, 2- or 3-story offices, and medical facilities and others, and yet plenty of housing. Literally, you can walk from some of those housing if you're interested to walk maybe close to a mile. But, and if not, just getting out of your car and coming and going. This is a very good example of, and you can see it from the side, the bird's eye perspective. And then going back again, the more of a smaller one that I was talking about, I particularly throw that. This is just right by Jamboree and 405. It's a couple of commercial buildings, a hotel, and just next to it, plenty of housing. These are the mini nodes. So there are larger nodes, there are some smaller nodes. But these offices, again, my colleagues can talk about better, but to the best of my knowledge, these offices have very low vacancy rate, people coming in, and then next to it, although there are rentals and condos, they all have a very low vacancy rate. For some, people want to save on gas, people want to save on hassle of parking, people don't want to waste their time in sitting in traffic. So they're moving away to these different nodes, and even 15 years ago, these spaces were not as successful as they are now. So this is the interesting thing. So they are moving around and they are getting successful. I'm sorry, I'm done. Just this example, and this is some more of the Irvine. You could see that is a primarily residential area, as you saw from the thing. But I also wanted to say, for example, I wanted to throw the Modesto, California, Central Valley. You could see that was downtown and city grown to the east. And now what they're doing, you could see the edge of that residential areas. They're just buying it and city giving them permit to demolish the houses and build commercial. So, and some of them are serious offices. They're not haircut places or Subway sandwich place. So, and I thought while we're doing, since we started from Europe and came here, let's go back. And this is a project in Amsterdam, so you can see that there is a different way of thinking going on. This is just identifying your house, so getting through that, those colors. And this is in Korea, that they're against one of those huge self-contained cities. And I think culturally it's going to be a long, long time until these kind of projects be accepted in the US. And this is in China, because of course they don't have enough land and they have to dig into the mountains. So there is still that kind of thinking in these kind of countries. So just as a little fun to close the discussion. Thank you very much.